And away we go. It is the Bearcat Journal Nightcap, brought to you as always by Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com to download the app for Android, iPhone, and everything Galactic. Chad is off tonight. He is out to see Jack White with his beloved. And so we do have Dave Simone joining us from the BCJ podcast. As always, I am Aaron Smith. But Dave, welcome to the Nightcap. I think this is your first one?
It is. It's my first go around. Chad obviously had anywhere else to be.
Sure.
Seems to be the theme of the week in Cincinnati. But but
where else are you gonna go?
Where else? Yeah, I'm glad to fill in because I believe you're filling in for me tomorrow night.
Yeah. So we're doing a little tag team action here. It's fine.
Is that right? You kind of froze there a little bit.
Yeah, a little tag team action.
Yeah, see, there you go. We pinch hit when needed.
Bringing up Galactic Fried Chicken as they are the sponsor here, we usually talk a little bit about Galactic before we get into the meat and bones of this. But have you been to Galactic?
I'm a pretty terrible Bearcat Journal representation that I have not yet still been to Galactic.
So if you go though, are you going to get the secret menu chicken sandwich? Or would you go with just the tendies and one of their sides?
I would probably just be a tenders guy. Fried chicken is probably in my top 5 favorite foods. But I would prefer to just eat way more chicken tenders than bun.
All the bread?
Yeah.
I get you. Now, are you a spicy sauce guy?
Yes,
are you gonna
the spicier the better.
Ooh, then you're gonna like the Galactic sauce then. So make sure you try and get down there. They are in Dayton, Kentucky, right across the river, about I think it's less than 10 minutes away from downtown. So that said, Dave, we have you on here. We know how much you like to talk about the draft. Seems like the perfect time to talk about the draft as we are roughly 2 weeks away.
2 weeks tomorrow.
2 weeks away from the NFL draft. And it's crazy to me as we see, all the Twitter posts, if you watch ESPN, if you watch the NFL Network, they can't stop talking about Desmond Ridder and or Sauce Gardner, sometimes in conjunction with one another, sometimes separately. But it just blows my mind that we are at this place here in the 22nd year of our Lord, where 5 years ago, Luke Fickell had a 4-8 program. Now we have two guys who I think it's safe to say are going to be both first-round picks, right?
It's definitely trending in that direction. I mean, with quarterbacks, you just never know. I think a lot of it will likely depend on who that first quarterback is taken and when they go. You've heard some things about Detroit. That one seems a little far-fetched to me. Too. Carolina at 6 does not. I would, at this point, I'd be kind of surprised if they didn't take a quarterback. The conventional wisdom there is Kenny Pickett because of a long-standing relationship with Matt Rule, who Pickett was actually committed to Temple when Rule was a coach there before he left for Baylor. So they've known each other a long time.
Sure.
They've done extensive work on the quarterbacks. But, specifically speaking on Dez, we've kind of talked about it on the BCJ pod, and it's still holding true. Like today, Daniel Jeremiah was on the Pat McAfee show and talked some Sauce, and then talked some Dez. And
yesterday,
it really does seem like anybody that is talking quarterbacks is talking him, and I can only think that is because that is what they're being told.
Yesterday, Dan Orlovsky did the same thing on Pat McAfee.
They have no reason to just personally prop anybody up. So they're talking about guys that are being talked to them. And, we sound like a damn broken record, but I mean, it's the same stuff we said. It's once he got in front of the coaches and once he got in this process, teams were going to like him, and especially the coaches, because they would feel they would feel the most comfortable with him.
Now he did make he did make his first official visit, if I'm not mistaken, today to the Seattle
No,
Seahawks.
that was Seattle's first quarterback, first and
That's right. Okay.
only public quarterback visit. Dez has visited with.
I was gonna say I thought you had talked about that on the BCJ
Yeah,
pod.
he's visited with all the teams that are, in that quarterback spectrum: Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, and now today Seattle.
Detroit.
What's that?
Detroit.
I don't know if he's that one. I'm not 100% on, so I don't want to speak on it.
Sure.
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if he had some conversations with Detroit. Wouldn't surprise me if he's had conversations with Indy, with Tennessee. I just don't know 100% to say that he's had like a visit with them.
Sure.
Outside of the combine, outside of the Senior Bowl. But it's all the stuff that we know because we're UC fans that I think is now becoming, public information in just the comfortability that these coaches will have with him. From a personal standpoint and, from a football standpoint, there's just, the things, I feel like the things that he needs to work on, coaches will be like, we can work with that. The stuff that he excels at, I'm not sure that it's learned. Like, you're just kind of like, do you get better at processing? Do you get better at, how you orchestrate an offense? Do you get better at recall? Like, I know that's a big thing that's been talked about lately with him is how fast he can take in information and recall. I mean, this was what has been talked about with guys like Burrow. People talk about Burrow as like having a photographic memory. Like what was it? The whole like deal with Jacksonville, that whole you can't zero me thing because he remembered that Jacksonville's defensive coordinator or whatever was at Baltimore, and Baltimore would like stuff like that is the stuff that Dez is going to sit down with these coaches and they're going to talk for hours. And then they're going to go, okay, give me that playback that we talked about when we first sat down. And he's going to be able to just like snap it off.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's just crazy to see like when a guy like Dan Orlovsky is like, well, the only hindrance on Ritter is that he doesn't have those things that you can't teach, the massive arm that Malik Willis has, some of the speed that a guy like Malik Willis has. I don't know that Kenny Pickett really has anything on Dez, if I'm being honest.
I mean, I try not to be a UC fan in all this, but Malik Willis is a tantalizing prospect. I'm not real big on Kenny Pickett. To me, it would be like a Dez or Malik Willis thing. And I can understand why teams would gravitate towards him. Because in the last several years, teams have seen guys that are quote unquote raw be able to improve and be big time guys. I mean, like Josh Allen is one that comes to mind. Patrick Mahomes to some extent. Like, they want these dynamic, athletic, big arm, can make plays outside of structure guys. And I get that. I totally understand it. At the same time, there's some things that Malik Willis does and doesn't do that would scare me from a kind of a basic quarterbacking standpoint of why can't you or have you not been asked to do this? And why haven't you been asked to do it? Is it because, it's just not part of what you've been in, or is it because you can't do it? It's always the dichotomy of the projection versus kind of the known and the high floor. I feel like Dez has the high floor where Willis has the high ceiling, but the much, much lower floor. And our team's going to bet on the high ceiling, or are they going to bet on more of the known quantity?
Well, it only takes one, right?
Right. And it's trended towards the high ceiling lately. But, there's only one of those guys in this draft.
But I mean, you only need one team to fall in love with you.
Exactly. I think there are several teams that like Dez a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of, who else is available when they're picking, and, do they feel like this is a guy they might be able to get in the second round, might be able to wait and see what happens towards the back half of the first round. But the buzz is continuous. It's not slowing down. Obviously I'm more locked into the UC guys, but as a Bengals fan and just an NFL fan, a draft fan, I'm pretty locked into all of it. I honestly don't hear or see much about any other quarterback. Peter Schrager kind of started talking today about don't overlook Matt Corral at 6, which I don't know what that's all about. Doesn't seem, but from a Des Ridder standpoint, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Because that would mean that someone that these other teams were not expecting to go that high went, and it would, I'll just use the term scare. I'm just going to scare other teams into taking quarterbacks earlier than they wanted, because they're going to feel like, well, now I can get my guy. Because I didn't have, if they didn't have Corral there or whatever. Yeah. That one just kind of came out of left field, and I'm not sure how to read that. But I haven't heard anything on Kenny Pickett lately. Very little, if anything, on Malik Willis. Virtually nothing on Sam Howell. And those are kind of, the 5 guys that you would say would be in that top 50 range.
Yeah, I think damn near every mock draft I did on PFF had Sam Howell available still at 31. And
it just depends on how you play with the settings. I was messing around with that a little bit today. I usually just do stock settings.
Yeah.
But then I keep getting the same group of guys
every time.
So I mixed it up and moved the settings around a little bit, and it totally changed. So it's really very much dependent on how you set it up from a needs versus randomness and all those elements. You can Tyler, speaking on quickly, Tyler Linderbaum has never once been available in any mock draft that I've done. Because of whatever the settings I have. Right. PFF has him
pretty high
15 players. So if your settings are slanted to more of a PFF board versus a public board, I guess that's why that's going to happen. But the Dez stuff is all out there, and the Sauce stuff is pretty commonplace too. Mel Kiper put out his updated mock draft today, had him 2 to the Lions.
He's not going at 2, right?
So if Aiden Hutchinson goes 1, I'm not going to say he's going to go 2, but it increases the chances. And I still don't see how he gets past the Giants' second pick at 7.
Oh, I think that he's a top 10 pick. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I'd be shocked.
There's a, you always hear the word the term cleanest prospect. And that just means all of their testing matches up, their tape matches up, their person matches up, everything about them is clean. I remember when the Bengals drafted Tyler Eifert, they virtually never talked to him, never had him come to town, because in their build up to draft season, he was such a clean prospect, no injuries.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying he's a shithead. Tape is good. They didn't have to do any work on him.
Right.
And that's why it was a surprise when they took him, because there was no breadcrumbs, And I think Sauce and Aiden Hutchinson are the 2 guys that I continually hear are the cleanest prospects in the draft.
Now, kind of getting back to the Dez and Sauce and how much they've been talked to nationally. This last question, we'll get out of here. But you know, how excited would you be if you were in charge of, regardless whether it was the sports department marketing or in charge of the University of Cincinnati in general, their marketing department, and you see just all of this talk nationally, whether it be all the Luke Fickle interviews since the even up to and since the Cotton Bowl, or all of the talk over the course of the last couple weeks here of Sauce, of Dez. Like, what do you think that means for the university?
I mean, I don't even know if you can put a price tag on it. I mean, just from like the last couple of days, you had Fickle on with Jim Rome.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Last week, last week or the week before, he was on with Rich Eisen. Today, Daniel Jeremiah is talking for about 2 to 3 minutes about Dez on the Pat McAfee show. Then talks about Gardner. Then talks about how, this isn't some like Johnny upstart team and that Cincinnati's going to have, 7, 8 draftable players. And, he kind of harkened back to like the old Boise days when people would say they're the underdog and he'd be like, they got like 7 guys that are going to get drafted. This isn't like some D2 school. So they talked about that and the development and, they talked about Pat, then of course talked a little bit about Fickle, but like, you have a national draft analyst on. I mean, there's Mel Kiper, there's Todd McShay, and there's Daniel Jeremiah. Those are kind of like the 3 big guys. Mm-hmm. And he is on a segment with Pat McAfee, and he probably spent a third of his time talking about UC guys and UC. Like, crazy. There's no price tag you can put on that. Like, you're getting, you're going to get
free pub.
You're going to get 3 days of it in a couple of weeks. You're going to get even more of it in the build up to the draft when these shows, ESPN's going to have several mock draft type shows, whether it's Mel and Todd, whether it's all their beat writers from the different teams, NFL Network, same type of thing. Every night there's a Path to the Draft show. They're going to have a mock draft with like all of the NFL Network personalities. So, I mean, it's hard to put into words and quantify what all that means. I'm sure behind the scenes these things are being built and being pushed out to recruits. I haven't seen anything quite let yet for public consumption, but I mean,
right.
Just imagine that when they all get drafted, they're going to have videos and
this could be you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We always see that when the card and the kid's name. I mean,
mm-hmm.
It really is. It's about as good of publicity that you can ask for without, having to spend a dime.
Well, it should be a lot of fun. Again, the NFL draft coming up in 2 weeks. I think that's going to get us out of here, though. Dave, thank you again for filling in for Chad. A lot of exciting things here over the course of, I can only imagine how much we're going to talk the NFL draft on that Wednesday. I can't imagine we're going to end up doing the BCJ on a Thursday.
No,
the week of the draft.
I can already tell you that right now.
Right.
I will not be doing the podcast from like 8 to 10 on draft night.
Right. So we do it Wednesday, and I can only imagine how much we're going to be able to talk on the NFL draft at that point in time. But as always, we do thank you for joining us. Again, thank you to Galactic Fried Chicken for sponsoring us here on the Nightcap. And we will be back again tomorrow night with Chad rejoining his spot at the helm. And for Dave Simone, I am Aaron Smith. This was the Bearcat Journal Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken and BearcatJournal.com.